Good morning. Welcome to the PG Orientation 2025. So we'll start our morning session with thyroid swelling case discussion. Moderator Professor Utpal Jana, faculties Dr. Pranavasis Banerjee, Dr. Prashanto Gure, Dr. Animesh Ghosh, Dr. Bibhas Adhikari, Dr. Devdulal Chakraborty. Now I will hand over the mic to the moderator, Dr. Utpal Jana.
Thank you, Ajay. Now we'll start the thyroid long case. As the long case, we'll discuss the thyroid. So, next slide, next first slide today. So, this is a patient, a 40-year-old male patient presented with a swelling in front of neck for the last 1 year. Okay, this is the case. Now, I will take the history, I will examine. So, this portion will be discussed by Professor Devdulal Chakraborty and Dr. Prashanto Gure.
So good morning everybody. Today we have given the case. Actually, Professor Jana has given the case. So already it has been discussed to you what is the case. Now, could you enlighten what may be the case? Any of you? What is your provisional diagnosis, seeing the case? Any one of you? Anyone? Volunteer?
We have to end it by 45 minutes.
So it is saying that it is a neck swelling. So what about your neck swelling? What will you tell? What is that? And before telling that, what you would ask the patient? Any one of you volunteer?
Simple case. What is the provisional diagnosis?
It's a thyroid swelling. Okay. It's a thyroid swelling. Why do you say so? It is a thyroid swelling. Why do you say so?
So this is an anterior midline neck swelling.
Yes,
so
good.
The location of it gives me an idea that it could arise from the thyroid gland.
Yes, very good. And what you do ask the patient?
So after this, I will like to inspect the patient. I will do my examination. I'll ask the patient
Okay,
for
okay,
deglutition.
okay,
For deglutition.
okay, okay.
What questions you will ask the patient for history taking?
Sir, I will try ask the patient if the patient has any thyroid, hyperthyroid, the signs of hyperthyroidism, any difficulty in, if there is any change in bowel habits, if the patient has any.
First start with the swelling.
Yeah, I will start with the swelling. For how long has the swelling been there?
History taken from the regarding the swelling.
Right. So I will start the my examination with my history taking. I'll ask the patient for how long the swelling has been present, if there is any increase in size, and has there been any recent changes in the size of the swelling. Apart from that, I will then start taking the history of, I will try to rule out hyper or hypothyroidism. I will try ask the patient if the patient is on any medications for hyperthyroidism, and then I will proceed for my examination and investigations. The first investigation that I would like to give the patient.
No, it's not investigation. It's the history taking.
Oh, only history.
What
taking?
makes you think, basically, what makes you think that it is a thyroid swelling? The only thing you have to ask, what is that? A very important point you have missed.
Sir, on
You have to ask the
radiation
patient.
Any
Yes,
radiation,
yes.
any history of any radiation to the head and neck region. If the patient, where is the patient from? Demography of the patient will give me an idea.
Sir.
Radiation history is it asks on a glass test. This is not the first history is the about the swelling, duration of the swelling, size of the swelling, any relation of the increasing, when rapidly
Size.
increasing, gradually increasing, or gradually increasing with the rapid onset of increasing. This is the about the swelling size, consistency. That is then the pain. Is there any relation of the pain over the
Is there any
swelling?
relation with the pain?
define the pain, aggravating factor, relieving factor, ঠিক
I
আছে?
will also
How
take
type
the
of pain is there,
history
is
of any recent
most of the
viral
dull aching pain.
infections.
Then regarding the
Does it move it with
With
deglutition?
deglutition, yes.
That is very, very important.
Sir, on inspection I will do that.
No, no, you have to also ask, no?
Acha, okay.
Yes, what is that swelling? You have seen the swelling few days back or few years back or few months back, and does it move with your deglutition or swallowing? You have to ask it, na? And that is very important. Why?
Sir,
Why
because-
thyroid swelling moves with deglutition?
Sir, because it lies on the pretracheal fascia and it moves, the thyroid cartilage moves with deglutition because the fascia is attached to the thyroid and superiorly it goes and attaches to the hyoid bone, which moves with deglutition. So,
No, it's the
sir,
anyone volunteer
Bery's
to
ligament,
explain
sir.
why the thyroid swelling is moves ups and down with it?
Sir, because of the Bery's ligament is the condensation of the
What is
pretracheal.
Bery's ligament?
It's the condensation of the pretracheal fascia that is present.
posteromedial.
Posteromedial condensation of the pretracheal
It is
fascia.
attached to the
Sir, it is attached superiorly to the hyoid, to the
It is,
superior
cricoid.
thyroid line, cricoid cartilage.
cricoid.
Then
And
And to the
superior
larynx.
thyroid.
So,
Oblique.
and to the larynx,
And to the larynx.
obviously. So,
And then
with
superiorly it goes and attaches to the.
every movement of deglutition, it moves.
Next. What are the methods of palpation of thyroid? Anyone? What are the methods of palpation of
there are
thyroid?
different methods of palpating the thyroid.
Just
There
tell
is
me,
just
what are the methods of palpation?
Laz method, I will palpate the anterior neck swelling from behind the patient, and I will push the swelling from one hand, and I will palpate with other hand, and other one is Pizillo's method. If the patient's neck is short and the patient is obese, then I will ask the patient to place his or her hand over the occiput and extend his or her neck, and I will palpate the swelling.
that will permanent the swelling and then you palpate from the front.
Yes,
And
sir.
this is the Pizillos method. In
Pizillos
case
method.
of obese and short neck patient.
Short neck patient.
It's a small thyroid swelling. Any another method?
Other one is Kreil's method.
Kreil's.
If the neck swelling is very small, then I will palpate it with the thumb of
Pulp of the thumb.
yes, palp of the thumb. This,
During the
sir, yes, sir.
during swallowing.
Yes, and I will ask the patient to deglute and palpate with palp of the thumb.
Achha. Any other method? One is the Lez method, one is the
Kreil's
Pizillos method, one is
and
Kreil's
Pizillos.
method. Any other method?
And,
How will you palpate the neck nodes?
yes, sir.
Describe.
Sir, no, levels of neck node, right? Sir, level submental is the 1B, which
Now,
is
how will you palpate? Mean, describe the methodology.
Another method is there.
Palpate from the back.
yes, sir.
Describe the how will you
लहरी से तो
Another method
Patient
is
is
palpate
asked to-
from the back, palpation from the back, as also
I will
during
palpate thyroid from the back. Anyone?
this is the classic method. Describe the classic method.
Palpation that Lahey's and Kreil's method are there, and that Pemberton's and Pizollo's are for, these are basically inspectory findings.
During the Pizollo's method, this is not the palpatory findings. Only the
Pizzolo not
inspectory
come
findings.
under palpation, sir. Pizzolo basically short and wave neck, which
You see during the deglutition, you also palpate the with the palp of the finger during the Pizollo's method.
Pizzolo's.
How about the margins, how about the surface, what is the consistency? ঠিক আছে?
Yes, sir.
Nodal artery of
The next question is on the where you palpate the carotid artery. And when there is no palpation of the carotid artery, what is that called?
This is important.
Anyone?
Anyone? How will you palpate the
In case of any
carotid
malignancy, carotid encasement, there will be the no pulsation. It's called Berry's sign.
How will
Otherwise,
you palpate? First, how will you palpate the carotid?
first palpate at the level of the greater conua of hyoid, just anterior to the sternocleidomastoid muscle.
At the anterior border of the
Anterior border of the sternocleidomastoid at the level of greater conua of hyoid.
upper border of the.
Thyroid cartilage.
Hyoid cartilage.
This is the normal method. What is the Berry's sign?
In Berry's, there will be the no carotid pulsation because of the there will be the carotid encasement will be there.
Why?
What is the significance? What is the significance?
Of this?
If there is any malignancy, when it's encased the carotid, that time the pulsation will not be palpable. Sir.
Usually the locally advanced thyroid carcinoma, there is involvement of the carotid sheath.
Yes.
That is why you cannot palpate the carotid at the level. That is called the Berry's sign.
Yes. Next question, how will you assess retrosternal extension of goiter clinical? Anyone? Anyone? Any other one? Anyone? Okay. Tell. Yes.
Will not be able to insinuate our fingers during palpation. So we'll suspect first of all that it's a retrosternal extension. Then we'll ask the patient to elevate his hands.
First you inspection.
Yes, sir.
On inspection, what you will find?
On inspection, clear lower margin of the swelling will not be visible, and on even deglutition, we cannot see the lower
The lower
free
margin.
border.
This is the on inspection. On palpation,
On palpation, when we palpate with Lahey's method, we'll not be able to insinuate our fingers and reach the lower border of the swelling.
that's very good. Then,
So in that case, we need to tell
what are the other inspectory findings on the neck, lower neck? Anything you have to search for?
Over the face, over the chest wall.
There may be the puffiness of the face,
Yes, sir.
congestion of the lower neck, engorged vein in the anterior chest wall or the lower part of the neck. That
Yes,
is the inspectory findings. Then,
Sir, that is what I was going to say, that we ask the patient to raise his hands and
this
then
is-
check for superior
Okay,
vena cavus congestion, etc.
what are the name of this?
No, not necessary.
Pemberton.
Sometime, if it is a huge goiter with a retrosternal prolongation, you can see the engorged vein over the neck.
Yes.
This is the inspectory findings. ঠিক আছে, then what is Pemberton sign?
Pemberton
Now, what are
sign.
the procedure? How will you?
In Pemberton sign, we ask the patient to raise his or her hands for a minute or so, and if the patient has a
At least for 2 to 3 minutes.
2 to 3 minutes, there will be facial congestion, puffiness, and engorgement of neck veins due to pressure over the superior vena cava due to a retrosternal extension of thyroid.
Any
Palpation?
any auscultation findings?
Yes, there may be bruit,
No, bruit is not present in.
thrill heard over the.
Any auscultation? What are the auscultatory findings?
Sir, normally on percussion, it will be dull. If there is a
Upper part of the
retrosternal
manubrium is usually resonant.
resonant, but in case of
During the
retrosternal,
prolongation of the thyroid, this will be dull.
yes, sir.
Next question, where you palpate the chill for the thyroid? In which area?
Over the manubrium
No.
sternum. Don't know, sir.
And what is thrill? What is thrill? What is bruit? Thrill is palpated. It's a palpatory findings. Or audible sound is the
Bruit.
bruit. Always in the which part of the thyroid?
Lateral aspect of
Lateral, lower, upper.
lateral aspect of.
Near the upper pole. Near the
Always
upper
in
pole
the
of the thyroid. Okay. Next question. Next now, what investigations you will do? For management of your case, what investigations you will do? Anyone?
Sir,
Other than you, anyone is there here?
will
Okay.
first
you
of
tell.
all ask the patient to get a thyroid profile done, at least TSH initially, and also advise the patient to get a ultrasonography of neck done.
Next.
Okay, so all of you know that the first investigation will be always thyroid function test to know the state. I mean, whether it is hypothyroid, euthyroid, and or hyperthyroid. Because according to the depending upon the state, you will proceed further for further investigation. So, so if it is hypothyroid state or euthyroid, then you have to go for ultrasonography and FNAC and all. But if that reveals hyperthyroid, then you have to go for thyroid
Thyroid
scan.
scan.
Whether the nodule is hypofunctioning, hyperfunctioning, or
Hot
in
nodule
between.
and cold nodule.
So depending on that, your next investigation, next treatment plan will be there. So if it is hyperthyroid, then you have to do the scan. Scan like technetium 99M scan or iodine 123, iodine 131. But all of you know the advantage and disadvantage of 123, 131 and technetium 99. Do you know that? What is, do you know the half-life?
Sir, the half-life of all three are different.
Okay, so iodine 123, forget about 213, so 13 hours. This is sticks for you. And iodine 131, it is 8 days. So you can compare these two. The half-life is very short in 123. So it will be better for diagnostic, and also 123 emits only gamma ray. For destruction you need beta also. But iodine 131 emits beta and gamma both. Okay. So iodine 123 mainly for diagnostic purpose because it will not emit beta ray, and the half-life is also very less. The problem is cost and availability. Because of non-availability or very scarce availability, its cost is very high. So it is not used routinely here in India. So either 131 or technetium 99. Again, technetium 99, the radioactivity will be less, problem will be less, and the half-life is also very less in respect to 131. So when you get the hyperfunctioning nodule, that means it may be due to Graves' disease or some other diseases. So you have to treat the patient according to that. And if it is hypothyroid or euthyroid or hypofunctioning nodule, then you have to go for USG also. Because all of you know that it is the hypothyroid state in where the chances of malignancy is much more. So next investigation will be ultrasonography. And depending on the ACR TRIRADS, American College of Radiology, the TRIRADS grading system is there. So can anyone tell me the TRIRADS grading system?
Sir,
Any one of you?
it is based on 5 parameters.
Ah,
So the ecogenicity, the consistency, the content, the margin, and the ecogenic foci. Based on these 5 parameters, points are given, and according to that, TRIRADS grading is done.
so all the investigation basically for scoring and the probability of the malignancy, you know. So ecogenicity, ecogenic foci, margin, and the composition and
Shape.
the tolerometer.
Yes.
And they score according to the whether it is hypoechoic or. Can any one of you tell me the features which is more in favor of ultrasonic feature which is more in favor of malignancy? You tell me. Okay, बोल दो.
In malignancy, sir, there will be taller than wider.
It will get 3 points.
And hypoechoic lesion will be there.
Very hypoechoic will
Very
get 3
hypoechoic
and
lesion.
hypoechoic will get 2.
Yes, sir.
Isoechoic
And
1.
there will be microcalcification present.
Yes, the punctate calcification will be scored as 3.
3.
Peripheral limb will be 2 and 1 will be macrocalcification.
Macrocalcification.
And then?
And there will be central vascularity, and that's possibly 2.
And the composition, that is solid cystic and cystic.
Solid is more.
Solid is
3.
more 2
Yes.
and solid cystic is 1.
1.
Okay, so depending upon the score, they divided into 5 subgroups. That is TRIRADS 1, TRIRADS 2, TRIRADS 3, TRIRADS 4, TRIRADS 5. TRIRADS 1 means 0 points. TRIRADS 2 means 2 points. TRIRADS 3 means 3 points. TRIRADS 3 means mildly suspicious. TRIRADS 4 means moderately suspicious. And here we will get the 4 to 6 points. And the point, when the points is 7 or more, then it will be highly suspicious or TIRADS 5. And there is also recommendation of doing FNAC depending upon the TIRADS. Okay, so after TSH, then ultrasonography, then that will guide you, your TIRADS score will guide you, TIRADS grading will guide you, the whether you need to do the FNAC or not. Can any one of you?
Sir, if TIRADS is 3, then and the lesion in highest dimension is more than 2.5, then FNAC should be done. If TIRADS is 4 and the lesion in highest dimension is more than 1.5, and if TIRADS is 5 and the lesion is more than 1, then it is suggested for
Okay,
FNAC.
so he is right. So TIRADS 3 more than 2.5, more than equal to 2.5, FNAC more than equal to 1.5, you have to do follow up. TIRADS 4 more than equal to 1.5, FNAC more than equal to 1, you have to do follow up. TIRADS 5 more than equal to 1, you have to do FNAC more than equal to 0.5, you have to do follow up. Now the thing will come, your histopathological classification, the Bethesda system classification. So what are the grade? Next question. What is Bethesda?
Bethesda is based on FNAC classification, FNAC findings. Bethesda 1 is non-diagnostic, Bethesda 2 is benign finding, Bethesda 3 is atypia of unknown significance or follicular lesion of unknown significance. Bethesda 4 is follicular neoplasm or suspicion of follicular neoplasm. 5 is probably malignant and 6 is malignant.
Okay, so the version Bethesda 3 is available now. Whatever you are saying, that is Bethesda 2 version. Okay, in Bethesda 3 there is little modification. Third version, there is one is non-diagnostic. Number 2, that is benign, Bethesda 2. Number 3, only AUS is there, no flus. Atypia of undetermined significance, only AUS in 3. That is, I am talking about the Bethesda 3 version, third edition. The 4 is follicular neoplasm, FN only, no FNM on all this, only FN, follicular neoplasm. 5 is suspicious for malignancy and 6 is malignant. And you have to know as I told you, that it's basically the scoring and the percentage of malignancy, all this investigation. So what are the probable chances of malignancy in Bethesda 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6? Can anyone other than you? You want to tell me?
Almost, sir, 20%, 5 to 20% is the Bethesda 3. And in Bethesda 2, in benign, its chances of malignancy 0 to 3%. But in new Bethesda system, it's almost 2 to 7%. And in Bethesda 3, there is chances of malignancy is Bethesda 3, ATP of undetermined significance. There is chances of malignancy. Earlier it is 5 to 15. Now it's almost 30%. 13 to 30%. And in follicular neoplasm in Bethesda 4, there is earlier it was 15 to 30%, and now it is 32%. Now it is 15 to 32%. It's not near about same.
Okay. If you can remember both the versions, then it's okay. But as you have to remember so many other things, just remember the latest version. That will be okay. So previously there was division in respect to NIFTP considering as a malignancy, NIFTP considering as a benign. Forget about all these things. Just try to remember the average risk of malignancy. Bethesda 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That is 13%, 4%, 22%, 30%, 74, 97.
497.
That is average risk of malignancy. And if you can remember the range, then it's good. I'm not saying that nothing wrong with that. But at least you have to remember in the average risk of malignancy in that way, that is 13, 40, 13, 4, then 20, 30 and 74 and 97. That is the percentage of risk of malignancy.
Suspicion of malignancy 67 to 83%.
So your next step will be, so depending upon the Bethesda, so you will see there is a two group. One is Bethesda 3 and one is Bethesda 4. That group is known as indeterminate nodule. Because you can't say that what is benign or malignant. And the things are very important here is the molecular testing. That will help you to give some clue regarding the whether the benign chances are more or whether the malignant chances are more. So one is non-diagnostic. You have to do repeat FNAC USG guided. 2 is benign, so you have to do follow-up. But 3, it's AUS. Either you can do FNAC, repeat FNAC USG guided 1 month after, or you can do the molecular testing, or you have to go for diagnostic lobectomy. In case 4 also the follicular neoplasm, again you don't know whether it is a benign or malignancy. A percentage is also not so high. So again you can go for diagnostic lobectomy, or you can do the molecular testing which will help you to determine whether it is benign or malignant. So you should know little bit about the molecular testing. Can anyone of you tell me the molecule or the genes are associated with the thyroid malignancy? Just tell me the name. So it's BRAF V600E, then HRAS, KRAS, NRAS, the RAS, and then RAT PTC, and the rate proto-oncogene for MTC, Paxate, Pipergamma, Fusion, and all these are there. You have to remember this, which one association with the which malignancy, and you should know little bit about the molecular testing. Can anyone tell me the molecular testing?
Red testing.
What do you know about the molecular testing? I am talking about the molecular testing. How to do it and what are they?
That gene, sir.
The name of the test.
Sir,
Okay, I think you do not need.
sir, Aptimert GSC Thyrosec V3.
Yeah. So if you go through the history of the gene testing, the first one is the BRAF 600E, that is in the 2003, and then the Aprima gene in the year of 2012. 167 gene analysis, I mean the mRNA analysis done with the microarray technology. That is known as Aprima 167 GEC. Then it is modified later on with the GSC, next generation sequencing. So first GEC, then GSC, and the other is Thyrosec
Thyrosec V3. Thyrosec V3.
Yes, B1, B2, B3, all the modification to increase the specificity, sensitivity, and the predictive value. Okay, there is a 2-word rule in test, rule out test. I am not going in details. You should know the MPTX, that is Thyrogen X or Thyramir, and all this. And remaining, the next is about the thyroglobulin, CT, MRI, and all this. When you will do CT in thyroid, USG is sufficient to tell you about everything, but when you will prescribe CT scan in thyroid swelling?
Sir, to assess the lymph nodes.
That can be assessed by the ultrasonography.
Sir, any extrathyroidal extension or
Extra?
retrosternal prolongation or extrathyroidal extension?
Yeah, so one point is retrosternal prolongation. By doing USG, you will not be able to assess the retrosternal prolongation. Okay, that is number 1 indication of CT scan. To add on USG, I am talking. Number 2.
Sir, extrathyroidal extension.
Extrathyroidal extension. That can also be assessed by USG also. So,
Sir, huge thyroid.
Suspecting of RLN palsy, vocal cord palsy.
So what you will get by doing CT scan to add on your USG?
If there will be chances of the malignancy.
Okay, so indication of CT scan is very limited. Don't do the CT scan in every case of thyroid swelling, though we are used to do it now. The number 1 is very huge thyroid. Number 2 is the retrosternal prolongation. Number 3 is the paratracheal, pretracheal, and the prelaryngeal group of lymph node, which is not usually picked up by the USG. Other lymph node like 2, 3, 4, 5 will be easily picked up by the USG. So for that level 6 of lymph node, to assess properly, you have to do CT scan. And number 4 is the vessel involvement. I mean whether the tumor is encasing the carotid artery or the IGB and all this, then you have to do CT scan. What about MRI? When you will prescribe the MRI? So,
আচ্ছা তারপর so MRI you have to you all of you know that the soft tissue assessment is better done by MRI. So when you are suspecting that prevertebral soft tissue is involved or the esophagus is involved, on that cases to add on the USG CT you can prescribe MRI. You understand? আচ্ছা বাকি বলে নাও নাকি থাইরয়েড
ঠিক আছে next question, why you will do total thyroidectomy in case of tumor confined to one lobe? Anyone other than these boys? Anyone from the ladies side? Why you will do total thyroidectomy in case of tumor confined to one lobe? Why?
Any one of you? Yeah, sir.
If size is more than 4 centimeters and
Right.
if the margin is irregular and shows the feature of malignancy, then we can go with total thyroidectomy in that.
No. If the margin is irregular, that does not mean that you are going to for total thyroidectomy. See, the general consensus, what is the guideline is that if the size is less than 1 centimeter, obviously you are going to go for hemithyroidectomy, right? And if the size is more than 4 centimeter, you have to go for total thyroidectomy. So it's the 1 to 4 centimeter zone that is the gray area. So there are some definite indications when you are going to go for total thyroidectomy. First is the age of the patient. If the age of the patient is less than 15 years or more than 45 years, number one. Number two, if the patient had history of radiation in the past, if the patient had family history, these are the epidemiological factors, right? In sonology, you see whether the size is more than 4 centimeter. Number two, if there is multifocal, as you correctly said, because papillary carcinoma per se is multicentric, multifocal, bilateral in origin. That means if one thyroid lobe is involved, it is expected that through the intrathyroid lymphatics, the opposite lobe might have also been involved, right? Number 6, if there is presence of extrathyroidal extension. So even if the size of the tumor is less than 1 centimeter, but there is involvement of the adjacent strap muscles, you go for total thyroidectomy. Then if there is evidence of lymph node mets and distant mets. One very important factor is if the histology is apart from the classical papillary variant, like tall cell variant, columnar variant, insular variant, morular cribriform pattern variant. These are actually the patterns which indicates poor prognosis. Hence, you have to go for total thyroidectomy. Next question, Kar. If the size of the nodule is 2 by 1 centimeter, TIRADS 4 and Bethesda 5, what type of surgery you are going to do? Anyone? Size is 2 by 1 centimeter. There are no poor prognostic factors. It's T1 lesion, Bethesda 5 and TIRADS 4. So what type of surgery you are going to do? Sir, hemithyroidectomy. Fine. Next slide. What will you do? Okay, for your question, if the patient, what the last question was, if suppose there is presence of also a suspicious lymph node. So in this case, if there is presence of a suspicious lymph node on sonology, what you are going to do? Same scenario, same patient, same size. I will add two features. The one of the lobe is having this 2 by 1 centimeter, another lobe is having 0.8 by 0.6 centimeter, right? Along with that, there is presence of a suspicious central compartment node. What you are going to do? Sir, either total thyroidectomy or hemithyroidectomy along with neck dissection. Central Why neck hemithyroidectomy with neck dissection? It is not recommended anywhere. Since it is multifocal, the opposite lobe might have also been involved, so you are going to go for total thyroidectomy. If that patient is having no node, N0, clinico-radiologically, what you are going to do? You are going to explore the central compartment. You are going to assess if there is presence of any lymph node. So if there is N0, the central compartment neck dissection is optional. However, if there is N1, you have to explore the central compartment. You have to remove the central compartment lymph nodes. N1 is N1A and 1B. 1A is central compartment, 1B is lateral compartment. If there is only one lymph node at level 2, you have to do both central compartment as well as lateral compartment neck dissection. Suppose there is a 4 centimeter or 4.5 centimeter single focus right-sided thyroid lesion, right? 4.2 centimeter single focus lesion, there is no central compartment lymph node. What you are going to do? Whether you are going to explore the central compartment, yes or no? Why? T3 and T4 lesions are having more chance of lymph node involvement, hence you are going to explore the central compartment. So if you just make a short synopsis, if clinico-radiologically there is N0, central compartment neck dissection is optional. Clinico-radiologically, if the patient is having N1, you have to explore the central compartment. If lateral neck is involved, you have to go for both central as well as lateral neck dissection. First strategy.
Next question.
What are the causes? Okay, just one thing to be added. If the, just footnote, if there is presence of any medullary carcinoma or if there is any suspicion of medullary carcinoma, the treatment is much more radical. There you have to go for total thyroidectomy with central neck dissection. That is the minimum treatment which you have to offer. Then next question is, what are the causes of respiratory distress after thyroidectomy? What are the complications? What are the causes of respiratory distress after thyroidectomy? You have done the thyroid surgery. In the evening, you get a call book that the patient is having
Tracheomalacia.
Tracheomalacia. Is it very common? Have you seen? Hematoma. Perfect. So, what is the cause of hematoma? Is it the bleeding from the blood vessels which is causing pressure on the trachea? Perfect. It is not the bleeding from the blood vessels that is causing pressure on the trachea. You need a huge amount of pressure on the trachea to compress it. It's actually the mucosal edema which is present in the tracheal microvasculature which is actually causing the respiratory obstruction. So one is this. Any other cause? Right. So these are the causes. One is the laryngeal edema due to tension hematoma, endotracheal intubation, surgical handling. One is the collapse, other is the bilateral recurrent laryngeal nerve palsy. So the anesthetist is saying that the patient, she cannot reverse the patient, right? So this is because of what reason? Respiratory distress, immediate postoperative respiratory distress. The anesthetist cannot reverse the patient. So why is this? What is the reason? Any one of you? Right. The patient is having probably bilateral recurrent laryngeal nerve paresis or palsy. So immediately you have to do the tracheostomy and subsequently you have to manage the patient. Next, how to avoid parathyroid injury during thyroid surgery?
Good morning. Achha, previous question, if there is, if surgeon or in the ward there is respiratory distress at the midnight after thyroidectomy, what you will do? Ki korbe? Anyone?
Maybe mosquito forceps if it is available or something, and then plan to shift the patient accordingly.
Shift the patient, explode the, ligate the bleeding vessels. Okay. If there is, you know in the previous slide that there is, if there is bilateral laryngeal nerve palsy, there will be severe respiratory distress. So what will you do during, what will be the aim in case of huge thyroid swelling? To operate the huge thyroid swelling, so you have to preserve at least one recurrent laryngeal nerve. Otherwise, there will be lot of sufferings of the patient. Okay. Next question: how to avoid parathyroid injury during thyroid surgery?
So to avoid the injury to parathyroid, first we need to see the certain surgical landmarks. Now parathyroid are total 4 in number, superior and inferior parathyroid. Superior parathyroids are located superior laterally, whereas inferior parathyroid are located inferior laterally and just beneath the level of inferior pole of the thyroid. Now the most important thing to see for inferior parathyroid is the inferior thyroid artery, because if we ligate inferior thyroid artery, there might be revascularizations of the inferior group of parathyroid. Now there is certain plane called as plane of pyretic. Now when we see the coronal section and the course of RLN is seen, then the superior parathyroid gland lies dorsal to it, whereas the inferior parathyroid gland lies ventral to it.
So first to know the position, exact position of the parathyroids. The upper, she has told that upper thyroids are upper, superior thyroids are somehow you can locate, but inferior parathyroids are invariable, inconstant in position, variable and inconstant in position. Sometimes you cannot see during surgery where is the inferior thyroids. We know it is in between the recurrent laryngeal nerve and lower pole of the thyroid, but you cannot, sometimes you cannot see the inferior parathyroid gland. Okay. Next, you have to identify the selective blood supply that is comes from the inferior thyroid artery. That those selective arteries supplying the inferior parathyroid, you have to preserve it, and those supplying the lower pole of the thyroid, then you have to ligate it carefully. There is a, you must know the all the triangles. Which, ठीक है तो. Next question is how to avoid recurrent laryngeal nerve injury during thyroid surgery. Anyone? A easy question. Anyone? You can tell. Some new phrase. So you have to locate, you have to identify the recurrent nerve at the level of Beer's triangle. All you know the Beer's triangle. Then you dissect it. Dissect the nerve up to the entry into the trachea. That is posterior to the cricothyroid joint. or you must know the location of the tubercle of the Zucker candle. You have to dissect the leg up to the entry, up to entry. Something it is very difficult. But somehow you have to identify the nerve at the entry point of the trachea. Okay, then you dissect the thyroid gland, subscapsular thyroid, dissection of the subscapsular thyroid gland, but thyroid lobule above the nerve. Sometimes the nerve is in the tumor must involve the nerve. What you will do? You will dissect the nerve by cutting the tumor mass and try to save the nerve. If possible, you have to take the help of nerve monitor, microscope, and or loop. Okay. Then, what are the complications of thyroid surgery? Ekjon bolo? Very easy question. Two most common already discussed. One is recanal injury, another is hypocalcemia. Any other? There is other is already discussed respiratory distress. What is thyroid storm? Anyone? Ekjon bolo? This thyroid storm is due to if you operate a thyroid hyperthyroid patient, there is sudden release of thyroid hormone into the circulation. There will be some features like high fever, then respiratory distress, delirium, seizures, coma. These are the features of thyroid storm. So you have to treat this thyroid storm with the steroids, beta blockers, and in the patient will be taken in the ITU. Okay. How will you diagnose hypocalcemia and how will you manage it?
Sir, for diagnosing hypocalcemia, first in post-operative period within 6 hours, we need to do serum calcium and IPTH hormone analysis. Now, serum calcium can be corrected serum calcium, which can be calculated by the formula, that is corrected serum calcium equals to 0.8. In bracket, we will take the normal albumin level minus the patient's albumin level, and that is plus the total serum calcium. So we will get the corrected serum calcium level. Then we have to see what is the value of serum calcium and IPTH. If IPTH is between 15 to 65 and serum calcium level is more than 8.5, then we will give normal calcium supplementation, which includes calcium carbonate and vitamin D supplementation. That is approximately 500 mg of calcium carbonate and 200 international unit of vitamin D3, which is given as a dose of 2 tablets 3 times daily for a week. Now, if we again see that the serum calcium level is between 8 to 8.5, then we can repeat the investigations after 8 hours, and if it again comes out to be less, then we increase the dose by 500 milligrams of calcium carbonate, and if we see that the level is between less than 7.5, then what we do is we add 0.25 milligrams of calcitriol in it. And if it is further decreasing, then we add 0.5 micrograms of calcium carbonate. And if the level is less than 7, then what we do is we start IV calcium gluconate. That is given in a dose of 10 ml of 10% in over 10 minutes as initial dose and is infused over 5 hours for maintenance dose.
Okay, very good.
Sir, there can be certain symptoms like perioral numbness can be there. There can be tingling and numbness in the feet and hand, and there might be certain signs like Bostic signs and Trousseau sign can be there in the patient.
When there will be Trousseau sign or Bostic sign? When the symptoms are established or early phase?
Sir, in early phase there will be perioral numbness and there will be some tingling and sensation.
Then if you elicit the Trousseau sign or Bostic sign, it will be present there.
And in severe cases, we can have bronchospasm, laryngospasm, seizure, and other
arrhythmias.
Arrhythmias, QT prolongation.
The patient should be taken into the ITU.
Yes.
Okay.
So we have to diagnose early. When the patient is complaining of perioral numbness or tingling, then we will suspect there is hypocalcemia and we will start the treatment. Okay? So I think time is over now. There are so lots of questions also, and also it depends on the examinee's answer quality. But the time is short, so we will ending here. Thank you all for your participation. Thank you.
I'd like to thank Dr. Utpal Jana sir, moderator for this session, and all the faculty for being so very on time